All right. Yeah, Frank was thinking, who's going to vamp this crowd? Bring on the bearded quilter. So we're going to get this thing going. We're gonna jump into this story a little bit, and then hopefully have a little bit of time at the end. So I'll give you the end first. So I run a quilt company. Well, I ran a quilt company, the Missouri Star Quilt Company. It's about a 500-person company in a cornfield in the middle of Missouri. Population of Hamilton, Missouri, 1,800. Right, so like a third of the town works for me. It's the company store. I only pay people in quilters cash, and they got to spend it with me. It's taking lessons from the old days. We'll do almost 100 million this year, and just cranking along. So like it's I still get emails from like old startup buddies. I worked with Techstars like a decade ago, and a bunch of these guys. They're like, how's the little quilt company going? I'm like, shut up. We're killing it, man. We're killing it in the quilting world. We're doing a great job. So I'll give you a little bit of this story. 10 years ago, I had come out of college. My dream was to someday make $100,000 a year. My dad worked for a newspaper company. He made $46,000 a year his entire life, right? And so this was where I thought I could go. And so I went to college. I came out of college, and got my first job working for Symantec. And the negotiation with them was really funny. The guy's like, so I get my job with them, and he's like, what kind of salary are you thinking? I was like, 74,000. He's like, come on, man, we'll pay you 94,000. Like, and so like I reached my goal the first day out, right? I'm very grateful for that nice boss that like didn't let me screw myself over. And so like I had this moment where you start to have like your midlife crisis right away, right? A lot of times when you're just working through a normal job, you get to hold hostage your happiness until you get more money. I'll be happy when I get that raise. I'll be happy when I turn into the manager. I'll be happy once I'm doing this. And then by the time you get there, you're like 60 years old, and you say, oh, well, I'll just golf until I die now. And so like my moment was when I could go into Target and I could buy anything I wanted. And I was like, I can do it now. I finally made it, Mom. And so everything was great for 8 months, and then this was November 2008. Me and 22,000 of my closest friends at Symantec got laid off, right? And so I was an insta entrepreneur, as most laid off people are, and just kind of I don't know if you've ever done this. I sat in my room and just thought, I need $1 million idea. I need $1 million idea. I need $1 million idea. And if you've ever done that, you know that you don't come up with $1 million ideas. They're the worst ideas you'll ever have. And so I decided I was going to start EnviroPure, which is an ozone cleaning technology. So if you're trying to sell your house, but it smells like some weird your smell and you want to zap it and clean it. And so I was like, this is genius. We got the technology from Japan and brought it over. And in 2008, right, in a housing crisis, I'm trying to sell $5,000 treatments to your house to realtors. It's really dumb. And on the side, my mom calls me one day and says, hey, I took a quilt in, your sister. I have 7 siblings, and so like my sisters would have babies, and I wouldn't know about it. And she's like, well, your sister had a baby, and I made her a quilt, and I took it into the quilter, and I'll have it back in like a year. And I was like, what? You're gonna get your quilt back in a year? Like, what on this planet takes a year to get back? Right, you can build a house in 6 months. It doesn't take a year to do a quilt, and the quilting is where they stitch around. You make I'm going to give you some quilting nerdiness here. You make a top, and then you have the batting and the backing, and then you stitch it all together. Right, that's called quilting. And so Mom had made the top, and she took it into a place to get it quilted, and they do it on a big machine, and she was going to have it back in a year. And I was just blown away. I was like, are you kidding me? If I bought you a quilt machine, could you do this? And she said, yeah, I think I could probably do it. Now, my thinking was, Dad was working for the newspaper, and he's slowly losing his job because newspapers weren't doing great. And Mom, there was a high likelihood they were going to need to live in my basement. And I was like, how do we keep you in your house? We've got to make this payment somehow. We need to come up with a job for you. Me and my sister started working. We were just thinking about it and like playing with ideas. And Mom, so Dad worked at the newspaper. Mom worked at one of those like prison camps for troubled teens. And like she'd come home with the craziest stories, like poop got thrown at her. I'm like, Mom, you got to get out of this place. We got to find you a thing. So when this quilt thing came up, me and my sister jumped at it. We said, all right, let's do it. We bought a $40,000 quilt machine. They're very expensive. And a $24,000 building in Hamilton, Missouri, right? I couldn't have started this in Manhattan. It wouldn't have worked. But a $24,000 building. Your mortgage on a $24,000 building is $280, in case you're wondering. So we buy this old building in this random town and put a quilt machine in it, and then put my mom in there. And that was it, right? The goal was to make $10,000 a month, and if Mom could do 5 quilts a week, it might work out. And then $5,000 to cover costs, and I make $1,000 for the investment. Mom gets $3,000. Like it was going to be a nice little thing. Well, EnviroPure didn't work out. It was a tragedy. And so I had this hunch for, I had this idea where in college, I went to school in Hawaii, which if you haven't been to school, you can go to school on a tropical island. You should definitely do it. So I go into school in Hawaii, and Woot.com and Steep and Cheap, all these daily deal sites were kind of big then. And like me, a broke college kid in Hawaii, would buy like a feather comforter because it was only $17, and 3 cast iron skillets because they were $9 on Woot. And Mom's like, I'm sending you $20 a week so you can eat. Quit buying this crap and getting it shipped to Missouri where you don't even get to use it. But I was like, it is such a good deal. And so I'm thinking about, all of a sudden I'm realizing that nobody's building these experiences for like my mom's age, right? 40 to 70-year-old women, there was 0 daily deal sites out there. There was 1 million of them for 23-year-olds, right? There's like mountain biking daily deals and coffee daily deals and sweater daily deals, anything you wanted, but like nobody was building them for old women. And I was like, if it got me, my grandma for sure, I can hook her at 3 in the morning when she's getting up to pee. I know that as soon as she checks that site, she's gonna be like, it's a great deal, I can do it. So I launched quiltersdailydeal.com as sort of this complement to what Mom was doing. And and then you have the little e-commerce thing to back it up. And I spent the next 3 years trying to be a startup guy, right? I had a pink business card from the quilt company that I was super ashamed to show anybody. When you sit down on an airplane and the guy's like, I do real estate, what do you do? And I'm like, quilter. I'm a quilter. I just didn't have it in me. I don't know. I mean, when you're sort of bootstrapping your own company, you run into this a lot, I feel like, where you don't quite have that validation of somebody writing you the big check and stuff that says, hey, you're good. And so there's a part of you that feels like you're a fraud while you're doing this. While your company is doing, I didn't realize this, but my quilting company was like better than every company that had come out of Techstars to that point. But I still, I just didn't have it in me to really know what I had. So that first year we did $100,000 in revenue. The way that we did it is I had $2,000 to my name, and we bought $2,000 worth of fabric and sold it for $4,000. And then we took $3,000 of that and bought $3,000 worth of fabric and sold it for $6,000. And we did this over and over and over again. And the way the fabric world works is you've got to buy the fabric you're going to get in 6 months, right? And so you get one shot at it. You order it 6 months before you get it. And so we're growing at like 50% every month. And so I'm projecting in 6 months, I think we're going to grow to this point. I think we're going to need this much. Here's how much we're going to need to hold this fabric for 9 months, which was what we wanted the life cycle to be. And then we were literally betting the farm every 3 months. I'd take everything I had, put it all on fabric, and wait and see how we did. And we were really good 90% of the time. The scary moments are when you missed it, right? But those were the times when we actually did some big innovations in the company. So one time I thought we were ordering 20 of these rolls that are like $40 a piece. We accidentally ordered 200, and then I'm like, all right, Ma, we need a project. You got to come up with an idea that's going to sell 10 times what we've ever sold. And she did, and then we'd work our way out of it, and it was great. So I mean, from a practical standpoint, we literally we grew this company from, it's been 10 years now. Started with $2,000, and then we just leveraged very practical bank debt, and we had terms. We have a revolving line of credit. It's weird now on this side as I'm learning more about VC money and stuff, right? I look at it, I'm like, I'm so much more advantaged to just go and leverage my relationship with a bank and get a $10 million revolving line of credit. Why would I ever take your money where you want my equity for this? I'll pay an interest rate. This is better. But there's something in my head still that like feels like I'm supposed to go this other route, but I can't get it to make financial sense. And so we'd leverage his debt and grow the company and had a blast. Some of the cool stuff that we did in between here was like some of my best ideas are born out of hate and spite. I don't know if you have this, but like I love a good enemy. And so this one time we were doing mom. Wait, let me pause. I'll give you a little context to sort of the model for the business, and we'll come back to the story about hatred. So with everything I do, I've got three things that have to be represented in every company that I build, and it's content, commerce, and community, right? And you need an angle on each of those before you get in there. And so our content, our big move was Mom started making YouTube videos every week. And this was in 2008, so YouTube was a year and a half old. Still to this day, like 74% of the people on YouTube are 15 years old and younger. That's a real stat. And so my 70-year-old demographic was not hanging out there, right? And so we had the challenge of like, how do you market to quilters? How do you find, like, where's their water cooler on the internet? There isn't an ESPN for quilters. I don't know if you knew this. There's nowhere that these people are hanging out. Nobody's building content for them. And so we started making these videos, and then I had to manually build this like email list around what was going on. But we got to do this very sort of altruistic, proactive thing with the email where we just gave them cool stuff. We're like, hey, we made these videos for you. Check them out, right? It was a very, very like, we love you, you're great. And as a result of that, so I have an email list with like almost 1 million people on it. We get a 70% open rate on my daily email, right? Like, I don't know, as a marketing guy, that's like pretty dang impressive. And it speaks to like a very trusting demographic that we have been very loyal to. And so email is a really powerful chain for us, but we just had to create content to support what we were going out because they don't want to open, it's another amazing sale today and fabric is funny. You don't need that much fabric. And most people, if you have a grandma or a mother, they have plenty of fabric and you want them to have less, right? That you're not trying to help them get more. And so we had to come up with stuff that would help them use the fabric they had so they then would want to come and buy more. So we had that was our content, our community. We started this forum because I grew up in the age of forums, and I thought it would be really great. And again, right, like where do your parents want to go hang out on the internet? I was creating water cooler hangouts, places where they would gather that I could talk to them. So we started this forum, and because it was just me and my buddy Dave. Right, we had to lie to everybody, and so I was Elizabeth and Sarah B, and Dave was Carmen and Ginny, and we would have these fake conversations every day because nobody wants to join a conversation that's not happening. I'd be like, Dave, no, I'd be like, Carmen, that's the cutest quilt. I can't believe you did that. You're like, oh, thank you. This is that. For like 3 weeks until we finally got a couple of people. It feels weird saying it now. Like we duped them into talking to fake people. Now it's like a 100,000 person community, and it's so great, and they love each other, and they like support each other, and they have prayer threads for who are we praying for this morning, and they have like swap things, and they send presents to each other. It's like an amazing community, but we had to build this from scratch, and like when you're starting from zero, man, it is the hardest thing to find that first person. And then the second, like getting to your first 100 customers is really friggin' hard. And so going through that, man, like just trying to find people gave me a lot of empathy for how crappy it is to grow a business. But also like you just have to do it. You just gotta brute force your way into some of that stuff. So that was our community. We had our content, our community, and the commerce. We had the angle with the daily deal, and we had some shipping stuff, right? So we had a great model there. As we're doing this, the tutorials, the ones on YouTube, we have this idea of putting out a magazine where the magazine would would carry the last 10 tutorials that we did online, right? So we just turn them into this print form, repurposing our content. I was like, this is a cool idea. So we call a magazine publisher, and well, like we knew each other from the industry, and they were like, this is a great idea. We'll call it Quilting Quickly, right? And with Jenny Doan. And so you guys will do all the content in here, 20 projects. We'll do 4 issues this year, and let's see how it goes. And I don't know if you know this, but like magazines suck a lot of times. And the way that they build their pricing model, they pay us $200 per project. Right, so we do all the work, write all the content, build the whole thing. At the end of the year, for 4 issues, they paid us $32,000. They sold 100,000 copies of each issue at $10 a piece. So they did $4 million on this and paid us $32,000, right? And I don't know anything about magazines, and so I call them and I'm like, that was a great test run. You got, like, we killed it, right? 100,000 copies each, and they sold out. We did awesome. What are we talking royalty and stuff? You know, like, let's get a little profit share here and we can keep going. Thinking that we can get to, like, if they would have offered me 3%, like, it would be a done deal, right? 3% of sales and we'd keep going. It'd be awesome. Christy, who was the person that worked there at the time, she's like, no, you know, we're pretty happy with the arrangement. Like, I think we're good. I was like, well, of course, you've got all the money, you bunch of jerks. And she's like, well, you know, it's not normal for us. Maybe we could offer you, let me talk to the manager, we can offer you $300 per project. And so this is my hatred and spite moment. I was like, Christy, if I have to, I will come into your industry, I will build a magazine, and I will take you down. And her comment was great, right? Because she's like, it was like a moment from Taken, right? She's like, good luck. And I was like, oh, it's on. So I get on Facebook and I say, who do I know that's in the magazine world? I need to ask you some questions. I set up 12 interviews for the next 2 days. And I just asked them, I'm like, what do I need? What am I doing? I needed 3 salaries. I needed a managing editor, a creative director, and a technical writer, right? Because I'm writing technical things. You can't send out a pattern that's like says a 4 instead of a 2. And so I'm like, all right, so it cost me about $200,000 in salaries. To print a 108-page, like, it's like a book, way better paper than a magazine, 108-page magazine, cost me 78 cents. And they were selling it for $10, those greedy jerks. And so I came in, I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna sell it for $6 because I am the Robin Hood of quilting. I've still got movie theater popcorn markups, right? Like, I'm buying it for 74 cents, selling it for $6. I'm feeling great about this. I launched a magazine. We need to get to 10,000 subscribers for it to be a profitable venture, right? Because I've got $200,000 in salaries. We get to 12,000 in 8 hours. And like, I'm just coming like a rampage. So we matched the 100,000 subscribers, and it's the coolest green button I've ever built because we use Stripe, and like I just click it, and all my little workers go and charge credit cards for 2 hours. And I'm like, bring in the money. We're doing it. But we make this really cool magazine with no ads, right? That was the thing, is I look at the old industry, because as I'm building my spreadsheet, I'm like, I'm missing something. How are magazines going bankrupt when you buy for 74 cents and I'm selling for $6 to $10? Like, this is crazy. And apparently their industry was built 40 years ago when they had to have an ad sales team. And a big part of the magazine was the sales of the ads. And you couldn't make money just on selling the magazine. And then you'd have this, like all this overhead and all the thing with 3 salaries. I didn't have any of that crap. And so it gave me this eye of like, well, what if we just run, what if we go the opposite direction of all the trends, right? Everybody's saying magazines are dying. I don't like reading magazines on my iPad. I want a physical magazine. My grandma definitely wants a physical magazine. And so I was like, well, we'll just go the opposite direction of everyone else. And let's go into this old antiquated industry and figure out how to build it in a way that it makes money. Because it made money in the beginning. Those guys were making money in the beginning. And then they just got greedy. And now everybody looks at it and is like, yeah, there's no money in that. Dude, there's a ton of money in that. So we built that. That's like year 1, it did like $4 million for us, right? I mean, it was a great move that you just get to add onto this thing using my same content and adding a couple of salaries. Like, my principle out of that is look around you. There's crappy old industries around you that your customers probably love and they have a legacy attachment to, that you just need to figure out how they made money back in the day and cut out all the 30 years of bureaucracy between then and now and go back to it. Okay, all right, we're done. All right. So that was a fun one. We launched the magazine. We've kept growing. So as a we'll fast forward through the rest of this. So you get to 3 years ago, we decided to me and my co-founders decided to step down from the quilt company. We ran into a spot, like, co-founder stuff is crazy, man. I'd love to talk to anybody that's dealing with a co-founder that they don't necessarily work the best with anymore. My co-founders were like my sister and my best friend Dave. But they had families and were living a great life, and I did not. And so, like, we had these risk tolerances that really diverged. And so we found this compromise in stepping down together onto the board, which a board for somebody that, like, I've never run a board, and so our board is just going to like an amusement park and talking. Are we doing good? Okay, that's good. I don't know if that's the right way to run a board meeting, but that's what we do. And so we stepped down from that. And then last year, I wanted to try the same model out again. So I did it over again, right? I was shopping for watercolor paints for my wife. Like 2 weeks after I stepped down from the quilt company, I apparently there was some pressure there, and it releases, and I met my wife and got married and had a baby and did all the things that I was putting off while I was running this company. So I get married, and my wife loves watercolor paints, and I was like, I'm going to go buy some watercolor paints for my wife, because that's what a good husband does. I read about it on the internet. And so I go online to find this stuff, and the number one seller of art supplies on the internet is called Dick Blick. I was like, I got an idea for a company. I'm going to do what they do, but I'm not going to call myself Dick. And we're gonna beat them. It's going to be better, right? Like, I go and I'm like, all right, I want watercolor paint. They're like, great. Which type of watercolor paint? I have no idea anything about it, right? I'm a beginner, and I'm looking at this, and it's like, do I want liquid paints? Do I want clay paints? Do I want powder? I'm like, I have no clue. It's like, okay, cool. Now which brand? We have 100 brands. And I was like, I don't know. And it says, great. Now which type, which model of stuff inside of that? And I was like, I have no freaking clue. And then you get to the very end, and it's like RGB values of 140 colors of paint. And I was like, this is the least creative experience I could possibly imagine. And we're selling to creatives. I was like, I can build a better business here. So we launched, I found a friend of mine from college that painted, all right, we're pretty much done. A friend of mine from college that painted a bunch on Instagram, and I called her and said, hey, if you come out here to Missouri, move your whole family here in February and see snow for the first time, she's from Sacramento, and come and build this little company with me, I think we can really do a thing. And so she moves out, and we started, I had my content, we were doing live paint-alongs, so like, you know, the sip and paint stuff. We were doing that, but on Facebook and YouTube, right? Live paint-alongs, and I thought that was going to be the thing, because if I've never done it before, I want somebody to go along with me. So we started doing that, and it's got like 6 viewers, and there's nobody, and I'm back to the spot of like, where did the first 100 people come from? This is really hard. And then we did, we weren't selling anything, because I was trying to sell $8 bottles of paint on top of this stuff, and so like you had to spend $60 to paint a project with us, and it was really crazy. So then we came up with a kit model, and then we ended up in a subscription model where we'd send you 4 kits each month, and we have the content, and we have a community on Facebook. We realized people don't want to share their crappy art with their friends. They want to share it with other people that are doing crappy art, and then they can like each other and learn and grow together. And that one, so that took a total investment of about $30,000. Right, and so I had to buy the inventory. It cost me about $12,000 to get the inventory and design and build the site and get the boxes and shipping supplies. We went 0 to $1.5 million in ARR in 4 months, and it just murdered it. It was like this little bit of rocket ship, right? And it's my principle in this is that there's like it's all around you, right? You don't have to be if I can do it with quilting in a cornfield in Missouri, with a town of 1,000 people, you guys could actually hire people here. You could probably you have neighbors you could talk to. I don't have that luxury. If I can do it in Missouri, you can do it here. If I can do it in quilting and watercolor, you can do it in some sexy vertical that like people love to hang out in all the time, right? Like look at your own businesses. There are ways of doing it profitably. Live and die by your LTV number, and you can build a successful, profitable company almost anywhere. So that's my talk. I'd love to take any questions you guys might have. The art company is Let's Make Art. And so we did watercolor, and then we launched like calligraphy, and we'll do, dude, it's the best. And we'll do like oil painting and acrylic and like yeah.
Really caught my attention when you were talking about taking a loan, you're getting you're being haunted by like, should I take in that investment money?
Yeah.
But so if you'd taken it, what would have been like your dream with it, like versus the fears?
Well, this is a challenge in the space, right? Because, well, one, no venture capitalist is ever going to invest in a quilt company. We were quilt company 3,501 in America, right? They were everywhere. Why would you ever invest in that? It's a bad investment. Had we taken money, I come to this all the time. We're like, I need to grow my business sustainably. There's a lot of guys that come in and try and throw money into it and buy everybody, and then they disappear. And so, like, I've got to plant trees, right? I could only deploy maybe $2 million in a year, right? At my size, people are trying to put in huge checks, and I'm like, what would I do with it? If I try and spend $10 million, I've immediately sold out all my credibility. Like, I got to plant trees and let them mature. You can't yell at the grass to grow faster. It's not going to work. So, I don't know.
What would it look like selling out your credibility with? Sorry, what would it look like to sell out your credibility with $10 million? Like, what would that actually look like?
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, you see it all the time, right? It looks like half of that going into just display ads, and then you try it. So like, I've got this great asset I have this talent of picking the personalities for our brands, and we have one or two people that live inside of that, and then we grow out of it. And if you try and rush that and just throw people that don't really represent your brand, or you start going after, because the way you grow your business is you either grow your market, so find other demographics that really resonate, and you start just spraying everywhere, and you have people for every little niche, and it's not deliberate anymore. That's what it looks like to me.
And the last question.
Hey, Alan. So your two businesses, one is a quilting business, one's a painting business.
Yeah.
And you're not a quilter, you're not a painter, but you've identified gaps in the market for
Right.
each of these. How do you think about passion as it pertains to like sustaining interest in an area when it's not your core vocation?
Yeah.
But you found the opportunity and you're just going at it.
Yeah, so the things that I'm passionate about, man, like you will never get more hugs in any business than I get in mine from old ladies that come. So one of the things we did that was really cool, we bought our town. We bought the whole town, 27 buildings. I own entire city blocks. And I was trying to get an angle for our company, and was like, I guess I buried the lead on that one, but I was trying to get an angle for our company, and I Googled who has the most quilt shops of any town in the world, and it was some 4 quilt shops in Germany. I was like, we're gonna murder these ladies. And so we opened 14 quilt shops in my town. I've got a man's land with recliners to hang out in, but it's this huge, it's there. A quilter's Hajj to Mecca ends in Hamilton, Missouri. And so they roll in, and no joke, they will come in and just start weeping. And just like they found their community, and they sit down on the floor. They're like, "This is it," and they're like, "You're Alan. You built the website." I'm like, "Come here, you!" And we hug, and like they love us, right? We get thousands of Christmas cards addressed to a website that's like, "Dear Missouri Quilt Co. This year," like I've used the internet my whole life, and I've never been like, "Dear Gmail, I use you every day. You were the best," right? But they love us. We have such this relationship with them, and so I'm passionate about building experiences for sort of underrepresented demos. Like I can get behind that, right? I feel very passionate about what we're building and that we're giving them a great experience. We're bringing the community together where it didn't exist before. For me, it doesn't have to be the art, the hobby itself. It doesn't have to be quilting, though. You better believe I've made my share of quilts, right? Like you can't own a quilt shop and not make a quilt. And I've painted. All right, I'm getting it down. And I've painted, but I don't love it. But I am very passionate about what we're building on the other side of it, right? So like, I think that there's a guy that's building cardboard boxes that can be passionate about his business, but it's some operational aspect that really gets him, and not the fact that he's making cardboard, right? Like, so if you find yourself in this spot where you're spending your days in this, you can find your passion almost anywhere, but it may not be as obvious as you might think. Anyway, thanks you guys. This is fun.